Good afternoon, good evening, members, officers, and members of the public. And I have had the thumbs up from the officer that we are now live on YouTube. And to find the link, please go to the council's website www.tenderingdc.gov.uk live meetings. For the purpose of the recording, I will introduce everyone. I'm Councillor Maria Fowler, Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I will introduce members of the committee separately. Councillor Maurice Alexander.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Jeff Bray.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Richard Everett.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Gina Placey.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Geeta Sudra.
Good evening, Chair.
And Councillor Anne Wiggins.
Good evening, Chairman.
The council officers assisting us this evening are from Committee Services, Bethany Jones, and from Leadership Support, Emma Howard. From Planning Services, Michael Pingram, Jacob Yasman, and Amy Lang, and Director of Planning, Gary Guyver, and from Legal Services, Mrs. Joanne Fisher. Changes to the agenda running order this evening, there are none. Each application will be presented by the officer, followed by public speaking. The applicant or the agent, followed by any members of the public who have already asked to speak for or against the application. Then will be followed by a speaker from the town or parish council, and finally the ward member. Committee members will then have the chance to question the officer. Once all the questions are answered, the committee will then debate. When all points are discussed, finally I shall ask if we have a resolution and then call for a proposer and seconder, and then we will vote in accordance with the normal rules. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillors Harris and White with no substitutions.
Thank you, Bethany. And as Councillor White, my Vice Chair, is not here this evening, to assist me, I have asked Councillor Placey, and that's why Councillor Placey is sitting next to me this evening. Minutes of the last meeting. I have the minutes of the last meeting here, which was held on the 28th of September. Do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Seconder, Councillor Wiggins. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Everett.
Item A3, planning application 220133, land west of Turpin's Farm. I am a member of the Frenton and Walton Town Council, within which area this sits, and I have not taken part in any of the debates in the council on this issue, and I am not predetermined.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Are there any other? None? No. Thank you. Item 4, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38.
Thank you, Chair. There are no questions.
Thank you, Bethany. Item 5, which is A123000864/full. And I will now hand over to Michael Pingram.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. So this application seeks temporary planning permission for the retention of 8 beach huts for 3 years to allow for the cliff stabilisation works to have been completed where the beach huts were originally located. The site itself is Jubilee Ground, Naze Park Road in Walton. So this is the site location plan, so you can see marked in red where the application site is. If I just show you the wider Google image, you can see it's part of the wider park with the sort of play area just where my mouse is hovering there, and obviously the beach and seafront just to the south there. Yeah, just to start with the site history. So in June 2022, a retrospective planning permission was granted for the temporary relocation of 17 beach huts from Eastcliff to the current application site. Condition 2 of this permission stated that the period of the permission shall expire in August 2023. So technically, as it stands, that has since lapsed, and at which time the beach huts and fencing would be removed. It was granted on temporary basis. It was granted a temporary plan permission on the basis that it was estimated the works would be completed within approximately a year. However, the submission confirms the works have yet to be carried out on the cliff, and it remains unsafe for the beach huts to be moved back to the original location. That said, of the previously approved 17 beach huts, 9 of those have since been relocated to empty beach hut plots across the district in various locations, and that leaves the 8 remaining beach huts subject of this application. So I'm just going to run through a couple of site photos for you. I understand you would have seen this morning on the site bus, but you can see here these are the 4 beach huts that are sited slightly to the north of the site, and these are the 4 to the south of the site. I've just got a couple of other images just to give you a bit more of a wider context. This is facing southwest towards the beach huts, which are just there. And this is looking northeast towards the beach huts. So yeah, so this is the block plan, and you can see that the beach huts are sort of in 2 sets of 4, all sort of surrounded with fencing as well. So in terms of the principal development, officers do note there will be a temporary reduction in usable publicly accessible community land. However, the proposal does also ensure the continuation of facilities for beach hut users whilst the vital works are carried out in another part of the district. So therefore the principle is accepted. The site is a safeguarded open space area. However, the works are temporary rather than a permanent measure to allow those cliff stabilisation works to be carried out. And in any case, the siting of the beach huts is on the edge of the safeguarded open space and would not result in any short-term harm to the use of the land, and also not prevent use of or access to the paths and play area. The proposal is sited in close proximity to the seafront in a location where beach huts or similar types of coastal development would be expected. As such, the placement of the beach huts here is consistent with the character of the area. The overall size of the development is not excessive and has actually been reduced in comparison to the scheme that was previously approved. They are visible from a number of public viewpoints across here, but sort of given the surrounding open land, the development is a temporary measure and does not block any coastal views, so officers are not sort of raising any concerns in that regard. There is adequate public car parking provision close to the site on Nays Park Road and within a public car park approximately 250 yards along Old Hall Lane. It is accepted there will be a slight continued intensification of the use of these parking facilities. However, this would not be significant and would be temporary in any case. So there's not considered to be any significant harm to highway safety. The use of the huts within this location is considered to be a low-key use that would have minor, if any, impacts on nearby residential properties. The nearest site is approximately 30 metres away, and it's considered the living conditions of those occupants will be unaffected. No trees or other significant vegetation will be adversely affected by the development. It is accepted there will be damage caused by the development to a section of the existing grass area of Jubilee Ground. However, the proposal is temporary and the site would be returned to its original state upon removal of the huts. A condition is recommended to ensure that is carried out. So in conclusion, the retrospective application would see the extension to the temporary siting of 8 beach huts following the initial permission for the 17 back in June 2022. The principle of development is acceptable as it allows the continuation of facilities for beach hut users, and it would not result in long-term harm to land allocated as safeguarded open space. And there is also not considered to be any significant harm in respect of neighbouring amenities, existing trees, or to highway safety. Therefore, the application is considered to be policy compliant and is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Questions for the officer, please? Oh, there are no public speakers. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. There are no public speakers for this item. Questions for the officer. I have Councillor Alexander first, then Councillor Bray, then Councillor Everett. So please go ahead, Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. From the agenda, reading and listening to what you said, Michael, am I right in saying that this is a retention brought about by a previous application before us in 22 for essential work to be carried out on the cliffs below, and this is merely a carry-on so that work needs to be completed?
Yeah, that's correct. The original permission was for a total of 17 beach huts. 9 of those 17 have been relocated elsewhere across the district, so this is just a temporary permission for the remaining 8 until those works are carried out.
And with no objections from the Town Council, Walton Town Council, and there has been no incidents there or problems with our decision way back then.
Yet the Town Council actually recommend approval, and I'm not aware of there being any issues since the previous application was approved.
Thank you, Chair. I see no point in asking any more questions, and that when you're ready, I'm prepared to make a proposal on this.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point, really. I note that we are extending to the 25th of October 2026. But there is some possibility that the cliff works may be completed before that. So can we have some assurance that the beach huts will be moved to their proper location as soon as is practicable within that time period, please?
Yeah, so the condition, so the application is for a temporary permission, so we've got to put a date on that, and 3 years is kind of standard for this. So that's the background to why we've chosen that date. We wouldn't be able to control that if the works were done, that they would be moved. They just have to be relocated within that time period. But I would assume there's no reason why, if the works are undertaken, I would assume there's no reason why these beach huts wouldn't just go straight back. I believe they're just here purely until those works are carried out.
Thank you. Quickly back. Thank you very much for that. So basically, if the cliff works are completed early, there's every possibility that the beach huts could be moved back more quickly. That's exactly what we're looking for. In that case, I'll be very happy to second Councillor Alexander when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Everett.
Thank you. I should have made the same declaration for this as I did for A3, so sorry about that oversight.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. So we actually have a proposal from Councillor Alexander and seconded by Councillor Bray. So I shall take the vote on that one then. Councillor Alexander.
For.
Councillor Bray.
For approval.
Councillor Everett.
For approval.
Councillor Placey.
For.
Councillor Sudra.
For.
Councillor Wiggins.
For.
And I am for approval, so that application is approved. Thank you, members. And the next item on the agenda, item 5, is A2 23000547/4, which is 225 Point Clear Road, St Osyth. And the officer, I shall hand you over to Amy Lang.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me while I shuffle about and plug in my laptop.
Please go ahead.
I think we're there. Are we there? Can you hear me? Can you see everything? Yes. Okay, thank you, Chairman. Evening, members. Okay, so item
A2 relates to the existing residential property at number 225 Point Clear Road in St Osyth. The application seeks full planning permission for the subdivision of the site and the erection of a 3-bedroom detached bungalow and new shared access to serve both the new dwelling and the existing property. The application is before members as the site is located outside of the settlement development boundary of St Osyth, and the proposal therefore represents a departure from the local plan. For the reasons explained throughout the report and this presentation, officers are recommending approval subject to conditions and a UU securing contributions toward play area improvements and the RAMS contribution. Please also note the additions and corrections detailed within the update sheet circulated to members. Thank you. Okay, so the application site comprises 225 Point Clear Road, including its side garden area. The red line encompasses the entire site as the proposals include the shared vehicular access. And there's an existing narrow access from Dumont Avenue to the rear of the site shown outlined in blue on the site location plan. This application, the site is shown here in its context. Although not within the defined settlement boundary, the site is located within a well built up residential area, and the application site is surrounded by existing dwellings. Moving on to the site photos. This first image shows a viewpoint from Point Clear Road toward the site and the existing dwellings beyond. And this image shows the front of the existing property and the application site to the left of the image. This picture shows a view into the application site. Number 225 is to the right of the image, and to the rear of the site is an existing detached outbuilding facing toward the separate access from Dumont Avenue to the west. This is another view into the application site, this time toward the side elevation of the existing property. And then another view from within the site towards the neighbouring property, the side elevation of the neighbouring property at number 217 Point Clear Road. And then finally, a view from the access point in both directions. So onto the proposal. The site layout plan shows the position of the proposed bungalow. The principal elevation will sit in line with the host dwelling and has a front projecting feature extending toward the highway, but no further forward than the neighbouring property at number 217. The development and owner property are served by the central shared access with hard standing, providing ample parking and turning. The existing garage to the rear of the site is to be retained as an ancillary outbuilding for the proposed dwelling, whilst the private driveway to the rear off of Dumont Avenue is to be retained for use by the severed host dwelling, not the proposed dwelling. The front boundary wall is to be enclosed by a 600mm high brick wall either side of the central access, and the frontage also incorporates new lawned areas and a couple of additional trees. This slide shows the proposed elevations and detailed design. The dwelling will be finished in a mix of facing brick and render with grey roof tiles, single storey, mostly fully hipped roofs, set back from the highway and of a scale and proportion in keeping with the mixed character. The proposed floor plan shows the kitchen living area to the rear of the property and then 3 bedrooms and a bathroom to the front. And the street scene plan here again shows the proportions of the dwelling in context and how it will fit into the street scene. So turning to the merits of the application, firstly the principle of development. I've put together this slide to show the location of the application site in relation to the defined settlement boundary of St Osyth. So the site is not within or adjoining the defined settlement boundary, as you can see, and therefore the application and development is contrary to the high-level spatial strategy set out within the local plan. However, policy SPL2 indicates that outside of settlement development boundaries, the Council will consider proposals in relation to the pattern and scale of growth promoted through the settlement hierarchy, together with all other relevant policies and material considerations. So in this instance, a material consideration of significant weight is a recent appeal decision at land to the rear of 172 Point Clear Road, also indicated on this slide. And that's also addressed in the officer report at paragraphs 7.17 to 7.21. In summary, the appeal was allowed on the basis that the site is within walking distance of amenities and public transport, and the scale of development would be proportionate to the size of the settlement. So the characteristics of this application site are very similar to that of the appeal site. This site is within close proximity of the Nisa local shop, the Dumont Avenue Park, and they're indicated with the yellow diamond and the pink diamond, and also within close proximity to a number of bus stop links. So officers are satisfied that the existing services and facilities within the settlement would be capable of supporting the development, and that these are accessible within safe walking distance of the site. Other than the high-level policy conflict in regard to the location of the site outside of the settlement boundary, the pattern and scale of the development is considered compliant with the settlement hierarchy. The design and impact of the proposal. The development is for one dwelling that would appear as an infill development and would not result in any harm to the street scene or wider character of the area. The single-storey scale and design is in keeping with the linear pattern and mixed scale of residential development in the locality. The forward projecting element will extend beyond the front elevation of the donor property, but will not extend any further forward than the neighbouring dwelling at 217. The development retains a good setback from the road frontage and will be partially screened on approach by the existing development around it. There's sufficient spacing retained around the host property and the proposed property, and overall the development will appear as a well-spaced and well-blended street proposal within the street scene. The site plan shows mainly grassed and block paved areas, but does include new tree planting. However, in terms of the potential impact of the development on the public realm, it's considered that the amenity of the locality and the quality of the development could be improved by additional planting. Therefore, within the officer recommendation, we have suggested a condition securing a revised, more thorough landscaping scheme. In terms of residential amenities, the size of the plot and single-storey height of the proposed dwelling allows for a development that will achieve an internal layout and relationship with neighbouring dwellings and the host dwelling that would not result in any material harm to, in terms of loss of light, sunlight overlooking, privacy or outlook. Private amenity space for both the donor property and the new dwelling are of a reasonable size for the properties themselves. It is worth noting there is one first floor side facing window within number 217. However, that's kind of positioned alongside the roof of the proposed dwelling, so will not cause any loss of privacy or overlooking. And no letters of objection have been received from any local residents. Highway safety and parking. The proposed dwelling would be served by the new shared central access from Point Clear Road with clear visibility in both directions, as members would have noted on their site visit this morning. The spacious frontage allows for a turning area and parking, ensuring that all cars using the development and the existing property will be able to enter and leave the highway in a forward gear. The proposal does not increase the number of accesses onto the highway, but just increases the use and makes it slightly wider. And the development provides 2 parking spaces for each property in accordance with the parking standards, and Highways raise no objection. The application is accompanied by a completed UU securing both of the relevant financial contributions towards improvements to the Dumont Avenue play area to the rear of the site and in accordance with the RAMS strategy. Other matters, we've got energy efficiency measures such as electric vehicle charging points, which can be secured via condition and is therefore included in the recommendations. The application confirms that there's connection to the main system and the areas of hard standing will be permeable. As I said, there's no individual objections or comments, and there's no objections from consultees. Objections have been raised by St Osyth Parish Council based on highway safety and the Highway Authority failing to conduct a site visit and submitting their comments on the basis of a desktop assessment. However, it's not uncommon for the Highway Authority to make desk-based assessments for developments of this scale, particularly where there is an existing access and or existing development on the site, as is the case here. So finally, officers are satisfied that the existing services and facilities within Point Clear would be capable of supporting the development, and these facilities are accessible and within safe walking distance of the site. The single-storey scale of the development and detailed design will appear as an infill plot and be in keeping with the linear pattern and residential development in the locality. Other than the high-level policy conflict in regard to the location outside of the settlement boundary, the development would not result in any harm in terms of design, impact, residential amenities or highway safety. This is in line with the recent appeal decision mentioned cited in the officer report. And for these reasons, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. There are no public speakers for this application, so I shall go straight over to members of the committee now for questions for the officer, and I will start with Councillor Bray and then Councillor Everett and then Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of quick points. Looking at the access and egress, I note that the curb is not dropped at this point. Can we have confirmation that that will be done early? Because it will certainly be useful for the construction part. Pumping up and down the curb's not going to be very helpful. So could we have that? And one other point, I detected something in the front garden which looked like a well. Now, it may be ornamental, so I could look very silly on this one, but it did look like a well, so if you don't ask the question, you don't know. Can we confirm what that structure is? Thank you.
I would confirm that that's an ornamental well that doesn't really have much bearing or impact on the development, pretty much filled in already, but will be removed and, you know, forms part of the hard surfacing and parking and turning areas to the front. So no real impact in terms of the assessment of the application. Thank you.
And the drop curb, well, my apologies for that, but at least we spotted it. The drop curb situation, please.
Yes, so the recommendation includes kind of standard highway conditions that members see. In this instance, there is a correction to the standard condition that's shown in the committee papers. So that now incorporates the width of the access to be in line with the kind of double width for a shared access point. And that incorporates the dropped curb, which is slightly wider. So the number of curbs is slightly wider, and there are specific requirements from highways for that type of access arrangement. So that's all included in the condition.
Superb. Thank you, Chair. In that case, I'm very happy with that. When the time comes, I'll be happy to propose approval for that one. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think I'm right in saying that for a 3-bedroom property, you'd expect an amenity space of 100 square metres? Is that correct?
That's the old standards.
Ah.
So in the adopted local plan, I think it's LP4, it suggests basically that the size of the garden area should be what you would expect for that size of the property and the character of the area. So for example, if you're in more of a kind of loose-knit area with much larger plots and much larger gardens, then we could kind of insist on a larger garden size. It has to be of a size that you would expect for that type of house, usable, private, and this development ticks all of those boxes and therefore meets that policy requirement.
Okay, thanks. And presumably you're happy with that for the property that we're talking about. What about the host property? Is that also, you're happy with that?
Yes, I can flick back to the layout plan there. So that garden size that's remaining for the donor property and the new dwelling, they're both of a similar size, typical of what you would expect for this type of property. It's well enclosed, no overlooking, usable. So yeah, there would be no kind of harm or concerns raised in terms of the residential amenities of the future occupants of the property.
Thanks.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bray very kindly asked all my questions for me.
So are there any further questions for the officer? Well, we can debate if you wish, but we do have a proposal from Councillor Bray already, and a seconder now from Councillor Everett, as per officer's recommendation for approval. And, oh, of course, sorry, Joanne's just reminded me, and on the update sheet as well. So, if there are no further questions for the officer, we will go with that then, if we're happy with that. So that will be for approval. Councillor Alexander?
For approval.
Councillor Bray?
For approval.
Councillor Everett?
For.
Councillor Placey?
For.
Councillor Sudra?
For.
Councillor Wiggins?
For.
And I am voting for, so that application is approved. Thank you, members. Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm reliably informed that I'm not able to take part in the next application. I believe one other is also in that position. So I think myself and Councillor Placey will be taking our leave. So I'll bid you a very good evening. Thank you, Chair.
That's fine, Councillor Bray. Thank you. Now, I'm not going to let Councillor Placey escape. No.
Good night.
Item 6 on the agenda is A2 23/00547 full. No, that's the wrong one. Item 7, sorry. A3 220133 full, land west of Turpin's Farm, Walton Road, Kirby Le Soken, and I'm going to hand over to Jacob for this one. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So this item concerns a development site that you will be familiar with because it's been in front of members in August of this year at this planning committee. So the proposed slightly updated development proposal is the replan of a part of the site to provide now 21 additional smaller units, increasing from a total of 210 approved to 231. That's as an alternative or a replan scheme of Planning Permission 16/00031/out. So members will remember the scheme. I'm just going to show you the latest correct layout plan. So at application submission stage, the application was for an additional 24 units. So, but after consultation with Essex Place Services, the urban design colleagues at Essex Place Services, a decision was made to keep some of the properties in the replan area as striking corner properties. So when these plots, we're only talking about 2 or 3 plots, when they reverted to these larger properties, the architect didn't update the overall drawing numbers and the plot numbering, and that error was compounded through to the accommodation schedule that was provided to officers, sort of in the build-up to August 2023. So that resulted in a planning application where the drawings actually showed an overall number of 231 dwellings. That was actually showed to members as well, but planning reports and supporting information that talked about 234 units, so 3 houses more. So as a result of these discrepancies, we took the decision to bring it back to committee because there's less dwellings than was actually referred to in that August 2023 committee report. So the 3 key changes are the proposed replan scheme. So we're only talking about that replan area now, shown in sort of shaded pink. That will provide an additional 21 dwellings as opposed to 24. So the overall dwelling numbers on the site will be 231 as opposed to 234 previously reported to members. The second key thing, just to make members aware of, is the number of affordable units that will be provided as part of this replan scheme will be 6 affordable units as opposed to 7 previously reported to members. And then as a result of the slight downward revision of the overall drawing numbers, the proportionate financial contributions from like ECC education and health will be reflective, basically, will be accordingly. So with that in mind, the reason it's here is purely for transparency reasons. So the recommendation, as set out on page 53 of your report, is effectively unchanged compared to the previous recommendation. There's one key update. So the recommendation is unchanged. Or actually, there's 3 key updates. It's unchanged as per the compared to the August 2023 recommendation, but it's subject to the removal of conditions 11 and 12 because those elements will be secured as part of the legal agreement. And then it's also still subject to delegated authority to enable the planning service manager to issue the planning permission once the NHS and education comments are available, confirming the contribution sought should match the previous scheme and amount per dwelling. And then lastly, the August 2023 committee resolution included the following words. It included development to be approved subject to, and then one of the things to be secured in the legal agreement was the completion and transfer of public open space and maintenance contribution. Now, the officer update is simply the recommendation on the last page of your update report remains unchanged, but members are simply requested to note that the replan scheme, this plan in front of you, does not contain any separate or additional public open space. And as such, there is no need to include a Section 106 clause seeking the completion and transfer of public open space and maintenance contribution. because such a clause will not be necessary. There's one word missing in your update sheet. It will not be necessary because the overall public open space contribution as part of the replan schemes is still in compliance with our adopted local plan policy in respect of the more than 10% of the site will be provided as open space. And in fact, the open space and management contribution clause that was included in the original planning permission has already been discharged. So there's no need to include it again. In fact, to include it again will fail the NPPG, the National Planning Policy Guidance tests for planning obligations. I trust that makes sense, but if you need any further clarity, obviously I'm here to answer questions. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you, Jacob. We do have a public speaker on this item, Councillor Nick Turner, who will be speaking as the adjoining ward member. Councillor Turner, if you'd like to take a seat when you're ready, push the button and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak, being fellow members, officers and members of the public. I've never been against the principle of development on this site, only against the quality and design. Please remember that this site was earmarked for development in various draft local plans for approximately 160 dwellings. The developers proposed 250 or so dwellings. 210 ended up as the agreed number. That was supposed to be sacrosanct. We are now looking at 231. As with all things in planning, it became a movable feast. I am not against the increase in housing numbers as agreed last August. The levelling up agenda is now looking for legacy from large developments for the locales affected, as this will reduce the demand on the public purse and add to the whole and not reduce from, i.e. improving our infrastructure. What I am against, and have always been, is the removal of the access road from Elm Tree Avenue to the proposed internal car park. Having spoken with very senior employees of Taylor Wimpey East London Limited, on several occasions they pass the buck. It is Highways who they blame. The access road is in the indicative plan outlined stage and was agreed. The direct access road to the car park close to the school has been dropped. This in reality will mean that it will not be as fully used as it should be. This in turn means that we're allowing children to be off and uploaded from a busy road. In fairness to Taylor Wimpey, they did offer to pay for a car park on the school's grounds. This was turned down by the school. This would appear to be in conflict with Essex County Council's TR1A. Off they go and look that one up. I will explain it. Development affecting highways requires developments affecting highways to aim to reduce and prevent hazards and inconvenience to traffic. In a similar development not a mile away as the crow flies, Linden Homes development on Halstead Road, Kirby Cross, has a car park at the entrance to their estate, which is used by parents and carers to drop off and pick up pupils to Kirby Cross Primary School. The car park is convenient, close to and safe, resulting in a large effect on reducing traffic congestion at school opening and closing time, with a corresponding reduction in risk to the pupils. Highways want only one access and egress point for this estate, the one into the Walton Road, to be used for emergency only. This committee has noted and overridden Highways comments before and will do so again. I draw your attention to 20/01125 outline heard on the 14th of March this year. Highways advised the planning should not be granted, and ECC Heritage further recommended refusal of the application subject to a detailed application. The Planning Committee approved outline planning. I mentioned a movable feast in my opening remarks. This too can be part of the repast, the meal, the banquet. It seems to me, as a non-parent and most seem happy to, it seems to me as a non-parent, that most seem happy to continue with the practice of allowing primary school children to be at risk when a simple solution is available. I would ask the committee, if mindful to approve this application, to make a planning condition for the access road as originally shown in the outline planning granted. Pro bonum omnium, for the good of all. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. And I'm just going to go now to Mr. Guyver before we go to questions.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Turner. I just wanted to come in on that point because Councillor Turner and I both have a sort of long familiarity with this site, both from its emergence as an allocation in the local plan through outline stage to reserve matters and the current application before us tonight. And the issue that has been raised, and Councillor Turner has raised it on behalf of the Town Council previously as well, most notably at the last meeting, where the issue around access to the car park was fairly thoroughly debated through the committee last time. The difficulty, and I think the sentiment is understood, and we do have the examples of other developments where it's been done in a different way. But the pertinent and the unfortunate thing is that because this is a full application to which the red line is separate from where the car park is and is in a way considered part and parcel of but independent of the original outline, the detail of the car park was approved as part of the reserved matters application which came before the committee, and I remember the meeting because it was one of the very last ones we had at Wheelie council offices back in 2021, and that reserved matters decision dealt with those elements of the site. Because the area of the car park is not within the area of this particular application, even if councillors wanted to explore that kind of change, it's not technically within our gift to be able to make changes to that area of the site because we are confined to the red line that we are looking at for the application. Furthermore, and I believe that the car park has essentially been constructed on the site. I haven't been down there in the last few days to have a look, but work on that is quite advanced. And really, for that reason, officers would invite the committee really to come to a similar conclusion as they did last time and refer them to the recommendation within the report. The main change is clarification on the number of dwellings that we're looking at here. But I would also like to note that, I mean, Councillor Turner has raised comments on behalf of the Town Council in the past, and you will note from the previous discussion and what's before us tonight that there are additions within the proposed legal agreement for this scheme, which does secure the financial contributions towards exploring the speed reduction measures and also the footpath improvements. And that's came about as a result of comments submitted by the Town Council, but also the effort, engagement and persuasion of the ward members in ensuring that that came before the Council and the Committee for consideration. And only by approving this application and Taylor Wimpey proceeding on this basis do we secure those obligations, because they are not obligations that were secured on the original outline. I think that's all I would say. I would simply refer the committee to the debate that was had last time and to the recommendation within the report, which is to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guyver. Now, before we go to questions, I will just update and clarify why Councillor Bray and Councillor Placey are not taking part with this application, because they were not present when the application was first before the committee on the 1st of August, and they did not attend the site visit. However, Councillor Placey can remain in the room because she has not declared an interest. So for those viewers outside and YouTube land watching. That's hopefully clarified that. Questions, members, for the officer? Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Within the conditions, condition 12, I might have misheard what you said there, Jacob. I wonder if you could just do a little clarification for me. What may I ask what the question is, and then that'll help you. That could drive you towards what I'm looking.
Yeah, so condition 12 in the August 2023 committee report seeks to secure those financial contributions. So we are simply saying it's just an update that the recommendation is now as per the August recommendation, except for the removal of conditions 11 and 12, because those contributions will be secured as part of the Section 106 legal agreement.
So, Chair, may I? Thank you. What I'm a little concerned is what the original 11 and 12 was going to achieve, which was the Fluid 106, towards the improvement of existing footway provisions, etc. Would those footways now be in jeopardy of not receiving any financial support to upgrade them, or will that still be somewhere in the new in the new agreement?
It will only be in jeopardy if for whatever reason this replan scheme is not approved.
Chair, I'm so sorry. Would you mind just repeating that last piece? I didn't quite understand that fully.
So my colleague, so Gary explained that as part of this replan scheme and following the comments from the parish council, we have actually successfully negotiated these highways improvements contributions in respect of the future speed reduction, and the second one I cannot recall off the top of my head, but that's been negotiated and secured as part of this replan scheme. So I can only see a situation where those contributions will be in jeopardy if this replan scheme does not go ahead or is not approved. Is that correct?
Right. Okay. I think I'm following your line on this. Will that revamp will not come back to us here, will it? We won't see it anymore if we give approval on a full application. Is that something we could be brought up to date with at some time?
The replan scheme is in front of you tonight, and it was in front of you in August 2023, so a resolution to approve the replan scheme is in place. The only reason why it's here tonight, again, is basically for transparency reasons and to update members on this discrepancy on the drawing numbers. And that only came about following, officers basically going through this with a fine-tooth comb and literally counting the properties. And we discovered that there's actually 3 less properties, and more importantly, 1 less affordable unit. And for transparency reasons, we simply have to bring it back, because I think not bringing it back will fail the transparency test. That's the only reason.
I'm just going to bring Mr. Guyver in here because he was just signalling to come in. So
yes,
just bear with
thank
us.
you. I completely concur with everything Mr. Yasma just said. Just to clarify that financial contributions sought from developments, the approach to do that is to secure them through legal agreement or a planning obligation, Section 106 legal agreement. Although they were written in the report last time round to be secured as conditions to the development, we don't normally secure money through planning conditions. So in a way, we kind of duplicated what we needed to do. If this development is approved and Taylor Wimpey decide to proceed to deliver the development in this form, those contributions are secured through legal agreement. There's a legal obligation. The detail of how they are spent to bring about or to investigate footpath or speed reduction things is not something we would bring back to the committee. It's something that very much the County Council as the Highway Authority would be taking the lead on. But the job we're doing is to secure those funds so that that work can be carried out.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is exactly why I brought this up, because it seems that we have moved away from what we would our normal practice, and I may have got myself confused with what's written down. Maybe a further clarity in the future on agendas might be needed. So that would save me asking you a load of silly questions, wouldn't it?
Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. My limited grasp of maths always makes me ask silly questions about maths. So here we go. Can you tell me what 30% of 24 is and 30% of 21 is to 1 or 2 decimal points?
It's 6 and 7 respectively.
6.6.
It's 6. 30% of 21 is 6.
Right.
And 30% of 24 is 7, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that is exactly the situation. It's one less than it was before.
Correct.
Not any
it's
equivocation
literally
around
if the affordable housing contribution goes down by 1 from 7 to 6.
Okay.
And that is still equivalent to 30% of the uplift. Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, I will say by now we're into debate if there are no further questions. Do I have a resolution? As per the officer's recommendation on page 53, plus the update sheet. Yeah. So we have a proposal from Councillor Alexander. I will be quite happy to second. So I shall second your proposal, Councillor Alexander. And we'll go to the vote on that one. Councillor Alexander, for approval on this application?
For approval.
Councillor Everett?
For.
Councillor Sudra?
For.
Councillor Wiggins?
For.
And I am voting for. So therefore that is approved. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers. And the last item on the agenda is the next scheduled meeting of the Planning Committee, which will be held on the 21st of November at 5 p.m. So thank you all and safe journey home and good night.